Did you know the NBA didn't count steals and blocks until the 1973 and 74 season? Imagine watching a game and not hearing a single stat the entire game. Today, we have records for everything, so much that it became a meme as well. You can read comments online about someone becoming the youngest player ever to record a triple-double while wearing different color socks and having a cousin studying at Harvard. All jokes aside, the stats have become an irreplaceable part of today's NBA, and sometimes they go too far trying to measure players' contribution to the game. They've changed how teams approach matchups, structure rosters, select draft picks, run offensive and defensive schemes, and much more. So, does that mean the analytics have improved or ruined modern basketball? That's exactly what we're talking about in today's video. Hello basketball fans and welcome to Hoop Vision. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Takes only a second, costs nothing, and will give you access to more basketball stories. To understand why analytics have become such a big deal in the NBA, we must first understand the principle behind it. Nobody would get so obsessed about them if they didn't actually work. The best example of how database decisions function in sports is given in one of the self-help classics, Atomic Habits, written by James Clear. If you've never read the book, the basic idea of it is that even the smallest actions play the huge part in results we achieve, regardless of our professions or other fields we compete in. The author states how important it is to identify the causal ones, because changing them leads to changing the results according to your wants and preferences. The principle mentioned is important because it applies to all sports, not just basketball. The book mentions the UK cycling team as an example. In 2003, the UK cycling organization hired Dave Brailsford as their new performance director. Up until that point, they've been achieving nothing but terrible results for almost 100 years. Only one Olympic gold medal and 0 Tour de France wins in 110 years. Lucky for them, they picked the right guy for the job. Dave was in love with a strategy he called the aggregation of marginal gains, so he changed anything that promised to show an improvement, regardless of how trivial it seemed at first. The bike seats, the tires, the overshorts, massage gels, even the pillows and mattresses riders slept on. Does this remind you of someone?
We have to be better. We have to play better. We have to defend better. We have to trust one another better. We have to be coached better. Every single thing, everybody has to be better. Everybody. It starts from the equipment manager. He has to wash our clothes better. The bench has to be better. The leaders of the team have to be more vocal. We have to make more shots. We have to defend better. We have to have better strategy. We have to be better. You know, and hopefully now it's what are we? January 6th. We have 4 months to get better, so let's see.
Anyways, the results were incredible. The British won 60% of gold titles related to road and track cycling events in 2008 Beijing Olympics, and in 2012, they set 9 Olympic and 7 world records. That was one hell of an improvement. So how does this translate to basketball? The NBA teams are aiming to achieve the same goal, and that's more winning. However, improvements are not just about adding more of the positive stuff, but eliminating the negative as well. There's a phenomenon in basketball called the invisible impact, which basically means when players do stuff that's impossible to notice just by looking at the stats sheets. Of course, no coach can watch all the games while scouting, which is why advanced stats made their appearance into the league. Instead of just looking at the simple percentages like field goals and three-pointers, the coaches are focusing on a specific set of circumstances and situations in which a particular shot has been taken. If you take the assists category for example, it's not the same as gaining one by attracting the defense and then pulling off an amazing no-look pass, and just being the guy passing the ball to an elite shooter. This is no jab at Rajon Rondo, who is a great point guard and one of the most entertaining passers to watch, but a lot of his assists came straight from exercising the simplest of passes to, at the time, the best three-point shooter in Ray Allen. We're not trying to underestimate this aspect of the game, but to point out what the advanced stats are really about, and that's weeding out the average performances from the really exceptional ones. Also, if you look back at the 2017 and 2018 NBA Finals, you'll see how many easy points KD scored on the fast break simply because everyone on the Cavs had the priority of stopping the ball getting to Curry on the wing. There's no column in the stat sheet for that, but the impact it had on the game was enormous. The same goes for good defensive players like Alex Caruso. We look at steals, blocks, and rebounds as the most important defense stats, but there's so much more than that. Things like putting pressure on the opponent's best shooter or reading and disrupting the offensive scheme can often determine the final outcome of the game, and yet those are not transferable onto a piece of paper. Speaking of papers, it's almost unbelievable how small events can alter the course of history. It was a chilly morning in Serbia back in 2012. A basketball manager named Misko Raznatovic was having his morning coffee and noticed the piece of sports news saying one fella had 29 points and 26 rebounds in a single game. Next week, the curiosity made him read the paper again. 30 points and 15 rebounds. The manager asked about him to find out the kid had no physical advantages over his peers and even was overweight at the time. For comparison, LeBron was dunking windmills at the age of 14. The kid turned out to be Nikola Jokic. The reason why we're telling you this is because he was the first player this manager signed before ever seeing him. That type of subjective feeling for talent is what no stat sheet can show. Yes, Nikola did get noticed for points and rebounds, but the vision of what he could have become was reserved for one man only: his manager. At that time, they thought he was crazy. This chubby, funny-walking dude with almost no work ethic and junk food diet could become the best center in the NBA. Nobody saw it then. Even Barcelona scouts passed on him. Just imagine if Nikola went to Spain instead of the NBA.
One bad season or one injury could have stopped the past 9 years from happening.
Denver wouldn't win their first ring, the NBA wouldn't have its first three-time MVP since Larry Bird, and us fans would be denied watching one of the most talented big men ever. All because one man ignored the data, the analytics, the advanced stats, and trusted his guts. That's how much power a vision can have over numbers and percentages. Just ask the Dallas Mavericks. Actually, hear this first. It's scary to see how ignorant the so-called basketball experts can be at times. That year, the Mavs used advanced stats to try to force the Heat players into their weakest spots on the court, and the strategy worked. Just hear what Cuban had to say next. And when you think Mark Cuban has all of that in the back of his head, just imagine how much data goes through all of the coaches, assistant coaches, staff members, and all the other guys involved in breaking down the game. After all, it's about putting the players into positions that will give them the best chances for executing on the court successfully. And this is one of those aspects when numbers and stat sheets really come in handy. But there's a problem with all of this the NBA didn't see coming. Naturally, advanced stats were involved to improve teams and improve the game. Well, the consequence of everyone applying the same strategy happened to be everyone playing the same way. This translates into regular season games being more boring, and boring is the word you want to avoid if you're in the entertainment business, which unfortunately for the NBA, they are. The viewership numbers have been one of the worst in the last 20 years, and it's not surprising why. Everyone's playing defense and shooting threes. That's all. Remember mid-range fadeaways? The shots that made us drop our jaws when Kobe would hit them? Well, those are almost non-existent in today's NBA. Instead, we have centers shooting threes and superstars sitting out for being too tired. Just take a glance at what the league looked like before. Andrew Bynum got benched for shooting that three, and he didn't take another for months. Today, he'd be encouraged to shoot 5 a game. It's insane how analytics changed the game simply because now everything's about the shot quantity instead of quality. Did they ruin basketball? No, that would be too much to say. But adjustments need to be made if we want to avoid the regular season turning into an all-star game. Three-pointers are the most valuable weapon, but let's leave it to guys who are actual three-point shooters. That's it for today, Hoop Fam. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments if you think analytics have improved or ruined basketball. Thank you for watching and growing this channel. Make sure you don't miss out on more NBA stories by hitting that subscribe button. See ya in the next one.